Thank you for being here. And it's very exciting being here with you tonight because we are going to talk about a band, a very special band from Rwanda that I love very much. So this is Marilena Umuhoza Delli. I'm the photographer, filmmaker, and executive producer of The Good Ones. And here with me is music Grammy-winning music producer, Ian Brennan.
Hello.
So Ian and I have been working with The Good Ones since 2009. And that was the first time I went back to, I visited Rwanda because I'm Italian and Rwandan. My father is from Bergamo, which is in northern Italy, and my mother is from a small village in the northwest of Rwanda that is called Murangara. And so I'm very proud of my roots, and I really wanted to go on this trip with my family. And my mom was going to go to see her country for the first time after 30 years being apart. So it was a very big deal. She didn't want to go to Rwanda because all of her family died in the previous two genocides, the one from 1959 and the one from 1973. But then she found out that her best friend was alive. She thought she died in the genocide of 1994, but we found out that she was alive, and so that convinced her to go back to Rwanda. And so Ian and I went there to shoot a documentary on my mother's return to Rwanda, and it was very, very emotional. And so that's when we started looking for music together. Ian, is a music producer. He had worked with other American folk artists, important bands, but that was his first time in Rwanda. That was his first time in Africa, and that was the first time for me as well, going back to my mother's country in Rwanda. So as we were shooting the documentary, we were looking for music, and that's when we met The Good Ones. It's a folk music trio from Rwanda. Originally, they were a trio, and they were embodying the three tribes of Rwanda: the Hutus, the Tutsis, and the Twa. And they were singing a lot about love. And so for us, it was the start of a wonderful journey, because ever since we've worked together on 40 plus records, and 4 records were born with The Good Ones, and we've traveled the world, we've toured with them, and it's been an honor and a privilege to grow with them, to see them growing and grow as well as human beings, being with them. And so I would like to hear from you, Ian. Would you like to add something more?
Well, yeah, so much of what you said, I think, is a lot of what we'll be talking about. But first and foremost, I want to say that we would love nothing more than if we were not the ones here, but Adrian and Jean-Pierre were. There are some structural obstacles to that. Number one, neither of them speaks English. They live without electricity, and they live without internet connection. So the possibility of them being here, unfortunately, doesn't exist. But they will be in New York City. And they will be in New York City on November 5th. And this is a small miracle, maybe even a big miracle. Getting visas for them is incredibly difficult. I think people have an awareness of how difficult it is, but not how difficult. They know that it is difficult. It's costly. It's a money-losing venture for us, but it's worthwhile. And it can only ultimately happen because of institutions like World Music Institute. So on November 5th, Sunday at 7 p.m., they will be coming to I can't say it right, but Fotogracia, the museum in Manhattan. And they're going to be coming basically from the airport. So we're going to hope that the immigration does not delay them too long, because they'll be going straight from there to the venue to do a sound check and then perform. And realistically speaking, this will be the last time they'll ever be in America. That's a very realistic estimate. They were in America previously, which in and of itself was a miracle. They've been able to go to the UK. That was in 2014. They were able to go to mainland Europe. That was in 2015. This might be the last trip that they're going to be able to make for a variety of reasons. So it's a very, very special thing, because as beautiful as it is to hear from people from the diaspora, and as beautiful as it is to hear from first generation or second generation individuals, because of these structural obstacles, it's very rare to be able to hear from someone from a nation in their own language that doesn't have those opportunities otherwise. And when we do get those opportunities, it's often people that are more privileged, people that, you know, are bilingual, trilingual, have had access to education, access to funds, access to travel. And these are things that have been denied to these two men. These are two men that have struggled with and continue to struggle with poverty, but their artistic gifts are tremendous. Their artistic gifts are exceptional. That's why they got the visas, because they are exceptional, and that can be recognized objectively if someone takes a close look at that, meaning the government. It's a rare opportunity to hear this, to hear somebody who is really communicating from their own experience, living rurally, not in the capital, living in working on a farm, in the tradition that most music is originated from in the last 200 years, meaning that it came from the people, but somehow it's been wrested from the people. You know, the forms have been taken and reshaped by people that are much more advantaged oftentimes. But the roots of it, so often, whether it's Italy, whether it's Rwanda, whether it's America, throughout the world, are from people entertaining themselves at night in the absence of television, radio, and electricity. So these are some amazingly gifted people, and I wish that they could be here speaking right now instead of me, but it's an honor and it's a pleasure to speak about them and about the amazing experiences we've had with them over the last 14 plus years, both within Rwanda and in various places in the world that they've been invited to perform over this course of time.
Yeah, we are talking about a trio that really has the right to be heard more. And so I loved what you said about, you know, inequity. Unfortunately, they live in a part of the world where, you know, there isn't as much attention and to, you know, to people who live in rural areas. And so the good ones live in the outside the Kigali. So there are, Janvier lives in the outskirts of the capital, and Adrienne lives in a hilly side of the country, so further away. And as you said, you know, they have no running water or electricity, and that is also why they cannot be with us tonight. And it's really very special, and it's an honor to be here talking about that. And I really hope that you guys can come on November the 5th, because you will hear this music in Kinyarwanda. And you will listening to something that is absolutely not mainstream, and it's very special, as Ian reminded us, because it might be their last performance in the United States. It's very hard. Ian went through a very hard process to get their visa. And we know that mobility, unfortunately, in the world distinguishes citizens in citizens of first class and citizens of second class. And so institutional racism is present also. It's very, very visible when we are working with artists that we want to bring outside of their country, in this case, Rwanda. And unfortunately, the process is very hard, almost impossible. I would like tonight to share with you, Ian, tell me if it's a good moment, a recipe. So I would like to share with you a recipe from my mom. My mom is from Rwanda, from Murangara, as I said earlier. And so I will be sharing the screen right now.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that I think now is a good moment, because I've heard that sometimes people want to cook or prepare to cook while watching this. So we'll present it now. And I also want people to know that we're in Italy, so we are 6 hours ahead. It's after midnight here. And Marilena already did a presentation over an hour away at 6 p.m. our time. And so we're doing this now. And we're going to do our best, but it's the middle of the night. But we're doing the recipe early for this reason, so that if somebody does want to gather ingredients or cook while we speak, there will be that opportunity. So yeah.
All right. So let's share the screen. Here it is. So I want to try and put it on a full screen. Here it is. Can you see? Hopefully, yes. So this is a recipe for my mom's Rwandan cookies. Okay, so tonight for us, we will make these Rwandan peanut cookies. They're not like all the other cookies, because the main ingredient is the peanut. So the peanuts are grinded, and this is a recipe that my mom's mom used to make for my mom, and so it's really part of our identity. So let's prepare the ingredients. So if you're ready, take note: 6 eggs, 200 grams of brown sugar, 1 pinch of salt, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 150 grams of margarine, 50 milliliters of liquor of your choice or white wine, 1.5 kilos of peanuts. So as you see, there is a big quantity of peanuts that need to be grinded, 200 grams of flour, vanilla, and 1 orange or lemon peel. Okay, so here we go. Grind your peanuts, put margarine and sugar in a large bowl, and then mix them all. Once evenly mixed, add the vanilla, egg yolks, baking powder, lemon peel liquor, flour, and stir very well. Finally, add your grinded peanuts and beat the egg whites until stiff. Then shape your cookies into nice balls and lay them on the baking tray. And then bake at 180 Celsius degree or 350 Fahrenheit degrees until they get crispy. Serve while warm with tea, milk, or coffee, possibly Rwandan. And here is the result. So these cookies can be preserved up to 3 weeks, and they're crunchy, but inside they're very soft. You can really taste the peanuts, and they're very, very sweet. These are very special cookies to me because they've always been present in our gatherings, or with, for example, the Rwandan diaspora in Rwanda, with friends, and it's fun. They're really good. So let's go back to you. And Ian?
Yeah, the cookies are amazing. And, you know, an interesting thing about Marilena's mother is that she's from even more remote area than Adrian is, literally at the very end of Rwanda, just above Lake Kivu. And when you look across, you're looking at the Congo. And she is essentially vegan and has been for close to 50 years now, but not because she thought about being vegan or that it was a political thing. It's just by choice. So many of her recipes are, in fact, close to vegan or entirely vegan. She abhors butter, for one thing, and cheese. And what's ironic about this is that traditionally in Rwanda, the main source of nutrition was milk. Everything was about milk, and you know, milk and peas and milk and beans, but milk was something you had daily. So I don't know if she just had her fill at a certain point, but she's kind of one of the original vegans, or certainly vegetarians. And these cookies are great. I mean, we have peanut cookies in America, but this is ours are peanut butter cookies usually. These are peanut cookies, so they're really, really, really have a lot of protein in them.
Yes, there are many beautiful Rwandan recipes. I grew up with my mom's cooking vegetables, igname, or you know. Unfortunately, she had a hard time when she moved to Italy, because it was very hard to find the products, you know, from Rwanda, but in Africa in general, unlike today. And so we really grew up with a very healthy diet, and so I'm very thankful to my mom for that. Yes, so that is that is very, very special. And I don't know if it's the right moment, Ian. Should I be sharing a few photos, or would you like to add anything else?
Well, maybe we should just talk a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more about meeting the good ones originally, and a little bit about their history, and then we can get into the photos. We're doing photos instead of video in case there's any latency problems where people might not be able to see the video, or it would be you know, seen in a fractured way. But when we went in 2009 and we were in search of music for the documentary that Marilena was making, we found a lot of music, and we had more time than we normally had in a situation like this. And so for 2 weeks, we went around the country. Physically, it's relatively small country. We went to all corners. We met a lot of people, a lot of nice people, a lot of perfectly adequate musicians, but nobody that was particularly exciting. And then our trip was about to conclude, and we were quite concerned, really. And then we met the good ones the day before we left, and we recorded their first album the night before we left, in one night. Literally a back porch, front porch record that was recorded at night, you know, in the dark on a porch outside with 2 microphones because the equipment broke down. But their harmonies are so incredible, and Adrian's songs in particular are so strong that the microphones didn't matter, and the technical limitations didn't matter. The feeling that they convey, particularly Janvier and Adrian, having sung together since they were children, is familial in the great vocal traditions of so many groups, whether it's the Jackson Five or the Everly Brothers or the Carter family, you know, staple singers. So often there's this familial bond, and they have that, even though they're not necessarily brothers, you know, in terms of the official term. They've been singing together forever. And one of the beautiful things when they sing is how oftentimes with these close harmonies, they will switch positions and dovetail, and it's very hard to tell who's singing what part at certain moments in certain songs. Nearly impossible, really. And so this led to then continuing, as Marilena alluded to earlier, to go around and search for music. And I personally have been producing records for almost 40 years, but I never would have set foot in Africa were it not for Marilena, and I probably would not have traveled widely were it not for her as well. So I'm so thankful for that experience initially and for what we've done since. And we've had the good fortune to meet so many fine musicians around the world, and so much of that is motivated by the idea that there is music everywhere and there's music in everyone. And part of what happened just prior to going to Rwanda in 2009 was we by chance met a world music expert who's from Belgium, and the history in Belgium and Rwanda is quite a nasty one with colonialism. And he proclaimed that there are no good musicians in Rwanda. They're good dancers, but they're not good at music. So an even more loaded phrase. And so that made us all the more determined to prove that wrong, because it just couldn't be right. And in fact, it was not. And the way we ultimately met them was that Mahoro, who was helping us drive, was staying where we were staying. And we've been talking about this for 2 weeks, looking for music. And one night, I look out the window and he's standing there in the dark playing an acoustic guitar. He never told us that he played an acoustic guitar. He's playing an acoustic guitar with one broken string. And it was beautiful what he was playing. So the next day I said, that was beautiful. I didn't know you played. What was that? And he goes, you like that? And I said, yeah, that was incredible. What was that? And he goes, oh, this is just a song I wrote. And he goes, but you like this? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, if you like this, then you need to hear the person who taught me this. And that's how we met the good ones. And the interesting part about that story that's quite, beautiful as well, is that it was a trio. There was 3 people, Janvier and Adrian, who are the core, who will be in New York City, and Stani. Stani was the one who had actually taught Mahoro. Then they became a quartet, where Mahoro joined and was able to come with them to England. And then following their trip to Germany, Stani had some personal struggles and was no longer able to continue, and they became a trio again. But unfortunately, as the touring goes, though when recording they still are a trio, it's only possible for the core partnership of Janvier and Adrian to come. And that's difficult enough as it is. But that's kind of the story, that there was this connection that occurred. And we've encountered that a lot, where you ultimately meet someone through a person who just kind of didn't understand or believe that you really wanted what they had to offer, and then after a week they'll say, oh, well, my uncle, or yeah, you should meet my friend, or and you don't find this stuff on the internet. Essentially, you find it in one way, and that's seeking it actively. And we've been very, very blessed and reaffirmed over and over again, no matter whether it's Eastern Europe or whether it's South America or Eastern Asia, wherever it may be, that there are incredible musicians everywhere.
Yeah, I remember that the night that we recorded the good ones, it was very beautiful. It was very romantic as well, because the sky was full of stars. There was a magical atmosphere, and it was beautiful because all that was happening in my mom's best friend porch. The friend that she reunited with and that she believed was killed in the genocide of 1994. So imagine the surprise and the beauty of the moment as well. And also I remember that the day that we arrived in Rwanda, it was July the 4th, that was Liberation Day. So it was another very special day. So Ian, there are a couple of questions. I don't know if you would like to answer now. Somebody's asking us what kind of instruments do the good ones use?
Yeah, we can answer some of these now. I think in general they want us to answer these towards the end, which we will do. So one question is about the instruments they play. They generally play acoustic guitars, sometimes electric guitars as well. And percussion is usually found percussion. And so, farming tools are what they use. Sometimes shoes are what they use for bass drums. Sometimes they play a traditional tambourine, and use that as both a bass drum and a you know, hi-hat, higher end musical element, percussive element. But the key are the harmonies, the two-part harmonies that Janvier and Adrian do. Occasionally it's three-part harmonies when Mahoro joins in as well. And the other questions we'll address more towards the end, but we have the photos, which, you know, can help bring them here with us, though they're not with us in this moment. So that would be good, and then we'll continue. But yeah, the questions are welcome. So thank you.
Yeah. So let me share the screen with you, and we are going to show you a series of pictures that starts from my Rwandan family, and then continue describing, you know, the good ones. We are going to talk about that in a conversation. So let's share the screen right now. Here we are. Okay, perfect. So I want to enter full screen. This is my mom's family. This is my mom, you know, with the dress with the blue and black and the brown stripes. And she's there with her mother and her father, her sister, and her nieces. This is right before the second genocide in 1973. Most of her family, including her siblings and brothers, had been killed in the genocide of 1959. And the rest of the family will be killed in 1973. So by the time the third genocide occurred in 1994, everyone was dead. All that remained were the friends. And I really love this photo because it's the only picture I have of my grandparents, of my Rwandan family. And it's very interesting because you can see most of the picture of the photo is a sky, almost to express, to show the directions that most of them will take. And I talk about this in my last book, and that describes you know, my Rwandan family. So my mother also was kidnapped when she was 5 by the Belgian colonizers who were conducting experiments, exploiting Rwandan kids and using them as guinea pigs to test the vaccine of polio. So my mother ended up contracting the polio. And so already then and also now, she has a limp. She has problem moving, a problem that degenerates as she's getting older. And here they are in Murangara. So in the northwest of Rwanda. Rwanda is many of you know, is known as the country of the thousand hills. And it's funny, this name, because it's also the name, you know, that we use in Bergamo, where I'm from, to describe, you know, also Bergamo, and so there is, I feel, a connection between Italy and Rwanda in that way. So let's see. This is my mom in front of the Lake Kivu. It's the main lake in Rwanda, and as you see, you know, it's an old photo from the 70s that was taken by my dad. So my dad at the time was a missionary, and when he met my mom, he decided to get married. So it was a dramatic love story with a happy ending. And here I am, almost 40, I mean, many years and years later, actually with my daughter, with our daughter. And I was very proud to show our daughter the site, the place where her grandma is from. And it takes 4 hours to reach Murangara. Most of it, most of the travel is on a dirty road. And then you get on top of these hills, and then you see this amazing view. You see the lake, you see the hills. And also something that struck me when we went there the last time, and that was the year after the pandemic, in 2020, in 2021, we went there to record the last The Good Ones record. What really struck me was how warm, how welcoming were the people from my mom's village. And we were there with a dear friend. And when he explained that we were, Miriam's family, some people, the people were very excited because they remember my mom, they remember my family. And so it was like a big feast. It was a beautiful moment for me and also for my daughter. So I'm very proud, obviously, of my Rwandan heritage. I feel very privileged to be working together with Ian with The Good Ones. And to me means a lot because it makes me proud even more of my Rwandan origin. And it's my way also to give value and voice to these important culture that is part of my heart, part of my identity. Being Italian Rwandan, growing up in Italy hasn't always been easy. And it took me a long time before embracing fully my roots and understanding how to give a value and to give value to them. So this is what remains of my family's home. And so you can see the lake. This is another perspective of the same house. So we are in an area where there are a lot of coffee plantations. And here we are with Adrienne. So this was the making of the record, Rwanda, You See Ghosts, I See Sky. And in a sense, this title reminds me of the sky that we saw in the first picture of my mom's family, that was mostly sky. I don't know, Ian, if you would like to say anything about also the record and this beautiful experience with The Good Ones.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that it's something you mentioned is that that one of the big obstacles, literally, physically, that people oftentimes overlook. Clean water is something people seem to be quite aware of, and food shortages as well. But good roads make a huge difference in terms of health, being able to get help to people, being able to get food to people. And the roads in so many places are very different in terms of the map. So you can look at the map and think, this is close, and it maybe is. It might be 20 kilometers away, but it literally might take hours to get there. And so, in fact, the last time it took us 5 hours to get there. And the roads have been rebuilt, but a lot of those rebuilt roads had already deteriorated because some portions of them had not been built very well. Some of the cement portions before you get to the dirt road. And so this was a place, Lake Kivu, that is quite near to where Adrian is from, relatively speaking, but he'd never been there. And it's a major attraction, it's a major site, but this was his first time there as well, because it's not easy necessarily to get from here to there, particularly in the absence of having personal transport.
Yeah, and I'd like to share also this other picture to give you more of an idea of this area. It's really incredible. You see these little islands and then the green and the hills everywhere. Some of you maybe are familiar with the Virunga volcano park. It's a beautiful area, protected area, where families of gorillas live. And so it's very beautiful also, the experience of going to watch and see the gorillas there. You know, there was a famous movie that was shot in Rwanda, I think, between Rwanda and Congo, about these incredible animals. But continuing with the good ones, here is Adrienne playing guitar on my mom's, near my mom's family house. And so that was very emotional too, because then we got there after 4 hours of drive on the hills, dirty road. Then the people came and they were asking who we were. They found out that we were Miriam's family. And so that was exciting. And then Adrienne started playing guitar. And that was even more incredible and beautiful. And people were excited. They were curious. And so we actually shot a video there about the making of the record, and also about a specific song, you know, but I don't want to spoil anything from the record. Just check it out. And here are Janvier and Adrienne. In this case, they are near Adrienne's house. He lives on a hill, at the end of a hill as well, in a very beautiful place. I mean, he's a farmer, so he lives in a very humble house, no running water, electricity, and he has some animals, you know, and a field. So he leads a very rural and simple life. So these two are not only great musically, but also they are great friends. And there is there is an incredible energy they both have when they are together, and that I think you can hear also through their records. So here is Mahoro. Ian talked about Mahoro earlier, and he did participate to the last record. And Mahoro is always in our heart, and he's been very important because he led us to this incredible duo, Adrienne and Janvier. And this is Stani, so one of the original members, and he's another great artist. Unfortunately, he's not with the good ones anymore. He had a few problems, and this picture was taken in England when they were touring, and when they were at the World Music Festival of WMI, so they were incredible there. Do you want to add anything about that, Ian, or?
Well, Stani was had incredible rock and roll energy. So many groups have that element. I would say he was the Flavor Flav of the good ones, or the Bob Stinson to the replacements of the good ones. And his songs were quite different, but added a different flavor. And you know, when we first met them, he showed up with an old, battered, thick book of Italian songs, and he wanted to show that to you because he'd heard that you were from Italy. And so he had this book of Italian songs, and he's really the one that was teaching Mahoro, but also had helped bring in a lot of other influences to Adrienne and Janvier, who tended to be influenced more by their immediate environment. So it was a very interesting thing that he knew phonetically some old Italian songs that most Italians don't know, because he had this book of folk songs from Italy from decades before.
That's true. Here are Adrienne and Janvier again. You see them with the mask because it was still during the pandemic, and so here they are right in front of Adrienne's house, where we recorded basically all the records, most of the records. And this is a good close-up of Janvier. What can we say about Janvier, Ian?
Well, I think we can say, you know, how talented Janvier is, but also to talk about, without making it melodramatic, just the obstacles that are faced, is that Adrian has had the advantage of inheriting land and therefore being able to work a farm. Janvier has had to move to the city, to the outskirts of the city, and struggle finding work. And his guitar that he was keeping in his home was just stolen from him. I mean, this is something that just happened. So already instruments are hard to come by. We give them instruments when we can. And the one guitar he had at his home, he no longer does. And so he's coming to America without a guitar. And we'll obviously get him instruments while he's here and ones that he can take home again. But it was heartbreaking for him because he rarely leaves the home unattended. But his wife and family had gone to a wedding, and when they returned, somebody had stolen the guitar from their home.
And this is Adrienne again during the recording session in his home. The two of them. So you see how they're sitting on a bench inside the house of Adrienne. He was lucky. Yes, he had the opportunity, to inherit the land of his family, but he still lives leads a very simple life. There aren't furniture inside his place, and it's very simple. This is Mahoro again. And then this is Janvier, still at Adrienne's house. And this is another photo of Adrienne. And this is Janvier. When Ian was answering the questions about the music instruments, a lot of times, the good ones also use instruments from the immediate environment, like this farming hoe. And this is the moment that Janvier is exactly doing that. He's using a farming hoe as percussions. And also the sounds of nature are an important component, of the records, just also to give you the idea, the atmosphere that, you're not in a recording studio. You are in this case, at the house of the artist in Rwanda, in the place where they live and where they create music. And so I think that there is a beauty in it. This is another photo of Adrienne, and this is again Janvier. All these photos were taken while they were recording music with Ian. And this is the last one. Janvier is on a motorcycle, and there is actually a video about this moment. They are in Kigali near the bus station, so it's very crowded. Also, the motorcyclists are, very present in Rwanda, especially in the capital. They're like taxis, really, and so they're really part also of the culture. And so this is a nice moment, and it was really at the end of the recording of Rwanda, UC Ghost, Icy Sky. And that is it.
I think one thing that, comes up a lot with the good ones is that is something I think has to be clarified repeatedly, and it's important, is that people will refer to their music as traditional music. It's not traditional music. It's acoustic music. It's original music. Adrian Kazagara is a poet. He's probably one of the greatest post-Dylan roots writers there is in any language. And if he sang in English, and if he had a cowboy hat and a biker chain and tattoos and lived in East Nashville or Williamsboro or Silver Lake, he'd probably be considered a genius or successful, or you know, it would be regarded differently. Instead, they are constantly kind of shuffled into this pile of quote unquote world music. But he is an incredible writer, and this is not traditional music. Nobody calls Bob Dylan traditional. Nobody calls Joni Mitchell traditional. Nobody calls Jason Isbell traditional. And in the same way, he's not either. This is acoustic music, and it's a music that is coming from somebody who also coincidentally, but interestingly, comes from the region of Rwanda that would produce the poets for the king. And so people within Rwanda will say, well, he comes from there. And so there may be something to that, but certainly there's a bohemian element to that particular region as well. And another confusion that we've run into over the years with them is that people will say, oh, you know, Stromae, you know, so Stromae is an incredible artist. Stromae is one of the greatest artists of, I think, the 21st century so far. And he has Rwandan origins through his father. And that's incredible. That's important. But he's from Belgium and doesn't sing in Kinyarwanda, and I believe doesn't speak Kinyarwanda. So he's singing in French and I think sometimes Flemish. But they released their debut albums the same year. And the good ones are singing exclusively in Kinyarwanda. And this is something that a lot of people in the West have had a hard time accepting, meaning when they've traveled, people literally refused in many cases to believe that they don't speak English and or French. So we were at the BBC one time, and there was a veteran person there, spoke to Adrian in French, and Adrian said, you know, bonjour back to him. I mean, he knew that from his upbringing, but he doesn't know French. And then, you know, during the radio interview, the person started speaking to him in French, having been told that he doesn't speak French. And obviously there was no reply because he didn't know that he was being spoken to. He didn't know what was being said. And the person at the BBC said, well, he spoke French a few moments ago. I mean, and he meant that. He thought he was being passive aggressive, that he was resisting him. And so this is the advantage that, you know, with colonialism, I mean, there are certain trends that continue. So being from a formerly English-speaking colony that still continues to speak English gives certain people advantages. In Rwanda, there was the deliberate switch from French to English in 1994, but these men are from the generation pre-1994, and they were not taught French in school either, because they didn't go to that level of schooling because they were too busy working. And so they don't have that advantage. They don't have that linguistic advantage. And when they first came to the city and we met them in 2009, many of the people in the city resented them and looked down on them because they spoke a different dialect with a different accent. And people were literally telling us, don't record them, record these other people instead, which were, you know, people we met over the course of the time that again were perfectly fine, but did not have the extra element, the kind of metaphysical or supernatural element that great artists tend to have, that Adrian does, and that when they sing together they do. And again, they'll be in New York City on November 5th at Photographic in Manhattan at 7 p.m. They'll be coming more or less directly from the airport, and they don't perform in Rwanda. They don't have those opportunities. And so it will be a rare experience inside or outside of Rwanda or anywhere else. But they are incredible artists. I should say we've got a few questions and we will answer those, and I think we're getting to the end. But normally there's a musical a display. I don't think anybody wants to hear me sing. That would certainly be probably indulgent and also almost repulsive. Marilena is a great singer, but instead of that, in lieu of that, there is a musical element that is just related to recording. And I would just say anybody who's interested in on-site recording, you know, one of the really important elements is just microphones that are very focused and tend to resist outside sound. So this one right here, the SM7 basic microphone that's used a lot on the radio for that very reason, so that you don't get the sound from the sides if somebody else is talking in the room. Tends to be a very effective microphone. It's not necessarily the fanciest microphone, but in these cases, you don't need fancy. You need things close to the source that are able to record that and not other elements. And then there's just the tried and true SM, 58 or the 57 together. Entire records can be made with them, and oftentimes sound almost as good as a record that's made with a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 microphone. So having microphones is important, not just a phone or a condensed microphone, but they don't have to be elaborate necessarily. It's the care of how they are positioned. And with that first record, we were so lucky because the equipment broke down, but we had a video camera with 2 XLRs. So we had 2 microphones for 3 people, and we just had to just make a choice and cross our fingers and pray and put them in position and hope that it would sound good. And again, the good ones play together so well that it made no difference, whether it was 20 microphones or 2, it sounded beautiful. And that had all to do with them and nothing to do with me.
Let's answer the questions.
Yeah.
There is a question that is, what is the visa process like coming from Rwanda to the US?
That is a very difficult process. It's a very expensive process. In the case of the good ones, it costs over $4,000 and took many months. But fortunately, the outcome was positive this time, as it was the last time, and we're very thankful for that. But it was a 156-page application, which is part of, I think, why it was successful.
Okay, next question. Why do you think the good ones resonate so well with Western audiences?
I think it's because the romanticism is there, and I really do believe that when we listen to somebody in a language we don't understand, we listen more carefully to the emotional content, to the authenticity of what's being said. Meaning, does the person really mean it? Is it genuine or is it disingenuous? And there is such a gravity, and it's so much from the heart in terms of what they sing, that I think that is part of why people are attracted to it. And they're one of these groups that, for me, are the groups that I've been attracted to, which are the groups that people love. So it may only be a couple hundred people or a couple of thousand people, but those people love the artist. As opposed to liking it. It's background music. And I do believe in many ways that they're the Nick Drake of world music, that their attention to them will probably only, I believe, only grow with time. That is the hope, that people 20 years from now, 30 years from now, will be continuing to listen to them, or maybe even with greater intensity, which is deserved because their music is so beautiful and so moving.
They have a right also to really be heard, because earlier you were talking about, colonialism, and that there is a need to decolonize music. Most of the stereotypes that categorize the good ones as traditional music rather than acoustic, these stereotypes, but also like a true act of colonization that prevent them from really being heard, because they are economically disadvantaged. They live in a rural area of a continent that unfortunately doesn't get as much visibility in certain areas like Rwanda. Just calls for the need of decolonize music right now, and definitely the good ones also for this reason have a right to be heard, because they're not given the same opportunities as a lot of Western bands that that basically are heard all the time on our radios or online, and it's very special, when you come and you listen to them, because they are an incredible band musically. They write amazing songs. As Ian said, they give a lot of emotions and feelings, and you can tell through the music they've gone through pain, and but they also know beauty, and this is Rwanda, and we want to listen to them, because listening to the music of another country, especially if it's not as much heard, it's only enriching for all of us. So last question for you, Ian. You've worked with so many groups. What made you attracted to working with the good ones?
The intimacy in their voices. When I record, that's really what I'm striving for, is intimacy. The beauty of the microphone is the ability to allow the quietest singer to be heard. And I believe that humility and meekness is undervalued in our society. And they have this power in their music that is palpable. So when we recorded the first record, we didn't know what the songs were about necessarily. What we came to discover was almost half the record songs on the first album are love songs. Almost half of them had the name of a woman as the title of the song. And one of those is Sarah, which is the first song in the first album, the 4 albums they've done. When we had that song translated, there was a little bit of fear, like, well, who knows, you know, what, maybe there's hateful things in this song, but certainly didn't sound like it. It sounded like poetry. And in fact, when the lyrics came back translated, it's some of the most beautiful poetry, some of the most beautiful song lyrics I've ever seen. A song about a woman who has contracted AIDS and is going to the witch doctor to try to have it cured, and is being shunned by her lover and by her family. Yet the person who really loves her is telling her, please don't go. And it was so moving, and again, so affirming, that what you are hearing without knowing the words is oftentimes truly what is there. And I think that's what comes through in their music again and again and again. And the good ones are very special. They're special to us personally, but they're also very special musically. And they'll be in New York on November 5th, Sunday, at World Music Institute, with World Music Institute at Photographic. And I really hope that people can seize that opportunity to come down and see them and experience what they do in person, because that's the best way of all. So thank you so much, Marilena, and thank you, World Music Institute, for having us here. And hopefully,
Murakose, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We so appreciate it. I'm now even more excited about, you know, seeing them perform. I encourage everybody who is in town to join us November 5th at Fotografiska. And thank you, Marilena and Ian, for sharing your passion and your, you know, your knowledge of the good ones with us, because this is a perfect introduction, and I also will definitely make the peanut cookies. So thank you for being with us, and I wish you now a late but still good night. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Join us again for our next at-home session, and thank you for this community. We so appreciate it. It's a global community of people who care about the arts and poetry. I'm so glad that you mentioned that as well, and great music. So have a good evening, everybody, or a good morning some places, and we'll see you on November 5th. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.